Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and this is Military Mind. Armed conflicts, defense and security, land, sea and air. We've got you covered. Russian forces launched one ballistic missile and 172 strike drones overnight, targeting Ukraine across multiple regions. Ukrainian forces reported a direct hit by the ballistic missile, as well as falling drone debris at 4 locations across the country. The attacks caused casualties and damage in several areas. A Russian strike killed 1 civilian after a drone hit near him in the Sumy region. Russian forces also damaged an energy facility and cut power to around 6,000 residents in the city of Chernihiv, where fires broke out at the sites of impact. Further south, Russian strikes injured 2 men during an attack on residential areas in Kherson. A public minibus was also targeted in the city during the same wave of attacks. In the Odessa region, a fire broke out on the territory of the Danube Biosphere Reserve following a drone strike. The region came under another mass drone attack overnight, damaging port, transport and residential infrastructure. Meanwhile, a Russian drone also entered Romanian airspace during the strike. Air defense systems in Romania tracked 2 aerial targets near the border, one of which crossed into Romanian territory before radar contact was lost 16 kilometers southeast of the commune of Chiliavice over an uninhabited area. Now, we're moving on to the front line. Russian forces are continuing to advance using small assault groups on the left bank of the Oskil River in eastern Ukraine. The city of Kupiansk is now described as a grey zone, with neither side maintaining full control. Ukrainian forces have recently redeployed some reinforcements from this area towards the Vovchansk sector, potentially affecting the balance of forces in the area in question. At the same time, Ukrainian units have advanced by around 4 kilometers to the east of Liman. According to Deep State Project, the area where this movement was recorded remains under Ukrainian control, although it lies close to the contested grey zone territory. Elsewhere, Russian forces have expanded their control in and around Huliaipole, including areas to the northwest of the city. Russian units are also engaged in fighting for settlements along the border between the Dnipro and Zaporizhia regions, and are attempting to eliminate Ukrainian groups that had previously infiltrated positions further south. Analysts say that between the 31st of March and the 11th of April, Russian forces did not conduct large-scale offensive operations and were even forced to halt their advance in one key sector after encountering strong Ukrainian resistance. Russian command has also had to respond to Ukrainian counterattacks in the Dnipro region by redeploying reserves from other directions, stretching available resources. However, analysts warn that Russian forces may soon resume offensive operations after regrouping and reinforcing their units, potentially leading to a renewed escalation along the front line. Ukrainian strike UAVs have shifted to an active hunting mode, targeting the movement of equipment and personnel. Strategic hubs and routes that support the operations of the Russian Federation's Donetsk group have been brought under control. Ukraine's 1st Battalion of the Azov Brigade notes the following: the unimpeded operation of drones indicates serious gaps in the Russian Federation's airspace control system. Now, the Russians, who are accustomed to relying on electronic warfare systems and anti-aircraft units in rear areas, have proven powerless against the new tactics for deploying Ukrainian drones, often affectionately referred to as birds. Until recently, these routes were considered relatively safe, allowing the Russian invaders to move their convoys with ease. Now, every trip onto the bypass road is something of a lottery, which can have a deadly outcome. The Zaporizhia sector, where every meter of open terrain is under Russian fire, has become a testing ground for the successful deployment of cutting-edge rescue technologies. Soldiers from Ukraine's 210th Separate Special Battalion, known as Berlingo, shared footage of the evacuation of a wounded comrade carried out by a ground-based robotic system. The 210th Regiment emphasizes that this evacuation was a complete success. The soldier's life was saved, and the evacuation team did not come under targeted fire from the enemy. So of course, this shows the advancement of technology, all right? We're often talking about unmanned ground systems on this show before, but also a certain spirit of the Ukrainian armed forces. They do not leave their troops behind. They do everything to get them out of danger. Remember the operation in Iran where the US Air Force literally lost 2 transport aircraft which had to be blown up on the ground, but they succeeded in rescuing a single F-15 pilot. So they sustained no casualties and a human life was saved. That's the same kind of spirit. On the other hand, the Russian forces, they often have a rather different approach to their own troops. They have a slogan, "Nobody is left behind," but people often do actually get left behind when it comes to the Russian units. Now, looking at another story today, the Russian propaganda machine has hit a new low, turning evidence of its own war crimes into a pretext for reports about alleged victories. You see, footage has surfaced online showing an attack on a passenger train in Kherson, what the entire civilized world classifies as an act of terrorism against civilians. The Russians are presenting as a successful strike on a logistics asset. Russia has once again confirmed its status as a state sponsor of terrorism here. Every video of this kind that the occupiers are flaunting today will become a page in the indictment of tomorrow. It's all on display there, evidently not a military train of any kind. Have you seen any military vehicles being carried? No, a passenger train. And the Russians are happy that they hit that. And also, remember today's summary of what happened on the front line and in Ukraine. All the attacks that we're talking about were on civilian targets. There was no mention of the Russians hitting a munitions factory in Ukraine, a military convoy. No, these were high-rise buildings. These were purely civilian facilities. So again, this tells us something about the mentality that Russia continues to cling to in its war of aggression. And with this, we conclude this edition of Military Mind. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news, updates and commentary.